He saw these religious leaders misusing God's name. And so in Luke, he says that he entered the temple area, he began to drive out these people, and he said, "It is written, my house will be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers," because these people were simultaneously breaking the third commandment, don't misuse the name of the Lord, and the eighth commandment, don't steal. And so Jesus was livid because these guys, these church guys who were like endorsed, they were violating the clear word of his Father, and they were doing it in his Father's name. Because when people showed up at the temple, or when people showed up at the church, they automatically assumed that it's all legitimate business and trading, because these leaders were leveraging the temple and they were leveraging God's name for their own gain. And they did stuff like this, like these religious dudes, they did this all the time. Here's another example. The fifth commandment we'll see probably next week. It tells us to honor our father and our mother. And in that day, contextually, what that meant is that at a certain age, you were required to take care of your parents. But the religious leaders came up with a loophole. They created a practice where for a fee to them, you could dedicate all your goods, dedicate all your possessions to the temple or to the church or to God, and you didn't have to like physically give them over. You could still keep them, you could still use them, you could still spend them for your own ends as long as they were dedicated, so that if God would ever need them, they would be available. But by you not having them available, by spending them on your parents, then you were violating what God wanted you to do for the church or what God wanted you to do for the temple. And so hundreds and hundreds of parents weren't being taken care of because by taking care of their parents, that money would then be unavailable if God ever needed it. When in truth, those parents actually weren't being taken care of because these church leaders, these religious leaders, came up with a loophole so people didn't have to follow the law to honor their father and mother. They were using God's name for their own personal gain. So Jesus said, you know what? Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. As it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but with their hearts they're far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules. They've let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions. And he continued, you have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your own traditions. Jesus was saying, you come up with a religious practice that allows you to bypass the clear teaching of God. A whole system of ways to bypass God, and you're doing it in God's name. That's a whole lot more than, oh my God.